Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holden Evening Prayer here at Christ Lutheran Church. It is good for us to be together for a moment of respite, a moment of comfort, a moment of peace in the midst of a whirlwind world. A couple notes about our service. You will find the link to our bulletin in the comments below this video or with this video. And but be sure to click that open and take a look so you can follow along and sing with full gusto and abandon as from wherever you are gathered. And notice also the live chat that goes along with this video. It's a wonderful way for us to remember that we are worshiping together in community, gathered from all the places where we are. So be sure to greet sisters and brothers there. Introduce yourself if you haven't joined us before. Let people know that you are here and hopefully foster those connections. And if this is your first time worshiping with us, notice in the bulletin there's a blue link for a connection card. We'd love to have the chance for you to introduce yourself and tell you a little bit, answer any questions you have about the ministries here at Christ Lutheran Church. And now let us turn our hearts to God as we prepare ourselves for worship. Jesus Christ, you are the light of the world, the light no darkness can overcome. Stay with us now, for it is evening, and the day is almost over. Let your light scatter the darkness and shine within your people here. Joyous light of heavenly glory, loving glow of God's own face, you who sing creation's story, shine on every land and race. Now as evening falls around us, we shall raise our songs to you. God of daybreak, God of shadows, come and light our hearts anew. In the stars that grace the darkness, in the blazing sun of dawn, in the light of peace and wisdom, we can hear your quiet song. Love that fills the night with wonder, love that warms the weary soul, love that bursts all chains asunder, set us free and make us whole. You who made the heaven's splendor, every dancing star of night, make us shine with gentle justice. Let us each reflect your light. Mighty God of all creation, gentle Christ who lights our way, loving Spirit of salvation, lead us on to endless day. May God be with you all, and also with you. Let us sing our thanks to God. It is right to give God thanks and praise. Blessed are you, Creator of the universe. From old you have led your people by night and day. May the light of your Christ make our darkness bright. For your word and your presence are the light of our pathways, and you are the light and life of all creation. Amen. incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as an offering to you. O God, I call to you, come to me now. Oh, hear my voice when I cry to you. Let my prayer rise up like incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as an offering to you. Keep watch within me, God, deep in my heart, may the light of your love be burning bright. Let my prayer rise up like incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as an offering to you. All praise to the God of all, creator of life. All praise be to Christ and the Spirit of love. Let my prayer rise up like incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as an offering to you. I received what is maybe the most interesting text message that I have ever received in my life last night. It came from somebody that we got to know when we were on traveling for my sabbatical last year, and we traveled to Tanzania. And Abraham was our guide and sort of a partner the whole time we were there. We got to know him, and we got to know his kids, and developed a friendship with him. And he texted me last night and wanted to let me know about some of the things going on in Tanzania, about how they are preparing for COVID-19, which they expect, the infection rates will go up there, and how they are preparing for that, and how the Lutheran Medical Center there that our congregation has helped support is part of the preparations for that, some of the things that they are doing and things like that. He said that, as you can imagine, that tourism has crashed by 100%. And since he works in that industry, I can't fathom how difficult that must be for him. And so he was telling me these things and sent me a link to a video. And then he said to me, I saw what's going on in your country. I hope you and your family and your parents are okay. He said, I saw that there are riots in your country. I hope that you and your family and your parents are okay. I have never received a message like that before. And to be honest, that's not the kind of message I ever expected to receive. When we think about friends from abroad and some of the things that we hear and what shows up in our news and things like that, to have this friend from Tanzania worried about what's happening in our country and worrying for our safety as we're in the midst of a whirlwind. So many things happening around us. And whether you come to, whether you look at the situation around us from sort of political center, left, crooked, zigzag, right, for however you approach it, there's plenty here to concern us. Because it's raising for us questions, and the things that are going on around us are confronting us with the question of who are we? Who are we supposed to be? Who are we? We're not who we thought we were, maybe, or who we've been pretending or wishing to seem like. And these terrible deaths that have happened lately have shown our country is not what we maybe pretended it was. With George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, we still have people lynched in our country today. And then the reactions, my brown-skinned friends who I know could be the next in that list, and who tell me about what life is like, and it's so different than what I experience with my skin tone. And then we have these words and all these visions of these images of damage and property damage and looting and things like that. And we hear these stories of groups that are taking advantage, hard left groups, hard right groups that are taking advantage of the chaos because their overall goal is to burn it all down. And they see this as their grand opportunity. People showing up with Hawaiian shirts and heavily armed. People who are looting stores. That sort of opportunistic in the moment. And then we have these stunning, heart-filling moments too, where we see people on opposite, who we expect to be on opposite sides, taking a knee together, marching together, arm in arm. We see people responding with compassion and courage and faithfulness. We see people listening and connecting and learning. We are in the midst of the whirlwind that has us asking, who are we? We're not who we thought, so who are we really? And who shall we be? Who does God intend us to be? Because the general rule as a Christian, our general approach to the world is a very simple question. We look around and we simply ask, does this world look like heaven for everybody? And if not, we roll up our sleeves. Because it means God is still at work. Does this world look like heaven for all of our siblings that God created? Everybody. And if not, then God's not done yet. And so we roll up our sleeves because we want to be part of what God is doing. We want to be part of God's work in the world, this grand project of the salvation of the world in mercy and justice and compassion and all of these things. And so here we sit in the midst of the whirlwind with all of these very difficult questions. It's hard to ask them, to be honest. It's probably hard maybe for you to hear them too. And we sit in the midst of the whirlwind as we have been through our time together on these Wednesdays to use the Psalms as our vehicle for exploring how to pray and what faith has to say. I'm going to invite you, since Pastor Erica reminded us that, you're at home, you have Bibles there. You might want to take out a Bible. You can sort of follow along and join with us too. Or if I'm actually going to be using our hymnal, and if you've got those as well, the Psalms are in there, and it's a particularly lovely translation that I'm going to be using for us. But as we've been going through the Psalms, we've talked about a number of things that we find in there and how they teach us and how they shape us in faith and for prayer and worship and things like that. And Pastor Erica pointed out last week that a lot of times the things that we say in worship we'll discover here in the Psalms, because these are our worship songbook from thousands and thousands of years. And so through our time together last week, Pastor Erica talked about that lovely image of a tree planted by a stream. And you remember that tree that had fallen over, but there were just a couple roots left and shoots coming straight up out of the side of that tree after it had fallen. That the wisdom of following God that Psalm 1 told us about. And we've talked about thanksgiving. We've talked about despair. We've talked about how the Psalms can speak for us when we don't have words to call out to God. And we're asking, am I God forsaken, or is God just silent? As we looked at the 22nd Psalm. And it's important, by the way, that the 22nd Psalm is followed by the 23rd. And I am positive that's on purpose. So in the Psalms, we find personal requests. Help me, O God, the water's up to my neck. It's a personal request. My God, why have you forsaken me? Or if we look at Psalm 3, it's about my own experience. Lord, how many are my foes? How many there are who say to me, your God cannot help. It's, I call to you, O Lord. Or Psalm 4, answer me when I call, O God, defender of my cause. It's about my experience and using these words and the reminder that, yes, we are privileged and allowed to call upon God in our own situation. Actually, you can keep going because Psalm 5 is the same. Give ear to my words. Psalm 6, Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger. Psalm 7, oh Lord, my God, I take refuge in you. This is about my experience. But then we also find in the Psalms they tend to be a little bit later, psalms that are pleas for the community. And so if you I will quit flipping around in just a second once I get settled here. Don't worry. When we get to Psalm 74, oh God, why have you utterly cast us off? Remember your congregation, remember your people that you purchased long ago, the tribe you redeemed to be your inheritance, and Mount Zion where you dwell. Turn your steps toward the endless ruins. The enemy has laid waste everything in your sanctuary. So sometimes it's about a plea on behalf of the nation, on behalf of the people, on behalf of the community. It's, God, we give you thanks, O God. Remember your people, O God. But where I want to turn us today is go back to Psalm 10. Because sometimes the Psalms are about what's going on around the psalmist, what's going on in the world. And they are, sometimes I like to call it hollering at heaven. So Psalm 10. Why do you stand so far off, O Lord, and hide yourself in time of trouble? You can't read that without it being so heartfelt. And you can feel the righteous anger there, can't you? It's looking around at the world that the psalmist is in and saying, this is not supposed to be this way. The wicked arrogantly persecute the poor. They are trapped in the schemes they have devised. The wicked boast of their heart's desire. The covetous curse and revile the Lord. The wicked are so proud that they care not for God. They deny God with every plot. There's another translation in the Episcopal Book of Prayer of that line that I love more than the ELW. It says, God does not matter. Their paths continually twist and turn. Your lofty judgments are beyond them. They sneer at their enemies. They say in their heart, I shall not be shaken. No harm shall happen to me ever. Their mouth is full of cursing, deceit, and oppression. Under their tongue are mischief and wrong. They lurk in ambush in public squares, and in secret places they murder the innocent. They spy out the helpless. They lie in wait like a lion in cover. They lie in wait to seize upon the lowly. They seize the lowly and drag them away in their nets. The innocent are broken and humbled before them. The helpless fall before their power. They say in their heart, God has forgotten. God has turned away and will never notice. But notice this next verse, because here we have expressed the pain of the moment, of looking at a world around us that is not the way it should be. When we see the uncomfortable truth The Psalms often are are struggling with the fact that people who don't follow God or who are opposed to God can succeed. And here, these enemies are rising and they seem to be succeeding. And you can hear the anger, the frustration in it. The psalmist you can't read that except in that way with that anger until finally in verse 12. Rise up, O God. Rise up, O Lord. Lift up your hand, O God. Do not forget the afflicted. And now it's a call to God. But think about the level of faith that goes with a call like this. It is calling on God to be God with the expectation and the sure promise that God listens, that our God is the God who hears. The psalmist isn't about to ask God to do something or be something God isn't, but is simply asking God to be who God is, who God has proven God's self to be through all of these millennia. Rise up, O Lord. Lift up your hand. Why should the wicked revile God? Why should they say in their heart, you do not care? Surely you behold trouble and misery. You see it and take it into your own hand. Think about that expectation. It is a sure knowledge that God notices and is seeing what's going on around the psalmist and around us. The helpless commit themselves to you, for you are the helper of orphans. Break the power of the wicked and evil. Search out their wickedness until you find none. And then there's this, so again, calling and inviting God to be God. I heard a preacher at a conference last week describe this sort of hollering at heaven as rubbing God's ears with God's promises, reminding God. Now you will argue and say, how can God forget? But I don't think that's what is at stake here. I think it's about us casting that, and about in our prayer just to simply remember that God has promised and does not forget his promises. And that's why the psalmist can finish here. O Lord, you rule forever and ever. The nations have vanished from your land. You have heard the desire of the afflicted. You strengthen their heart and you listen with your ear to give justice to the orphan and oppressed, so that mere mortals may strike terror no more. We rub God's ears with God's promises. We remind and call on God to be who God is. We remember God's promises to us, and we call God to account for them when things around us are not the way they should be. We say, enough, O God. Rise up, O God. Lift up your hand, O God. Do not forget the afflicted. And if you want other examples of calling on God, this sort of righteous anger, the hollering at heaven, you can just keep going. Psalm 12, Psalm 14. There are others too. Calling on God to be God. Calling on God to fulfill God's promises. And that's the invitation I have for you tonight, to join me. In the midst of the whirlwind in which we find ourselves, with all the things that are going on around us, and from whatever perspective, from every perspective we bring to view it, this is not the way we're supposed to be. This does not look like heaven for everybody. And that means God is at work and inviting us to be part of it too. We need to pray for our society, for our culture, for our nation. We need to pray for our siblings who are afraid. We need to pray for those who are rising up and saying enough. We need to pray and call on God to be God and say, rise up, O Lord. Lift up your hand, O God. Enough, O God. We know you're here. We know you are God. Amen. For our hymn, we are going to, this evening, we will sing the Spanish language verse. I invite you to butcher it with me as just do your best. And then we'll sing verses 1 and 2. La paz del Señor, la paz del Señor, la paz del resucitado. La paz del Señor a ti, a mí, a todos alcanzará. La paz del Señor a ti, a mí, a todos alcanzará. Verse 1. The peace of the Lord, the peace of the Lord, the peace of the risen Lord Jesus. The peace of the Lord is for you and for me, and also for all of God's children. The peace of the Lord is among us right now, so open yourselves to receive it. The peace of the Lord, the peace of the Lord, the peace of the risen Lord Jesus. The peace of the Lord is among us right now, so open yourselves to receive it. The peace of the Lord is among us right now, so open yourselves to receive it. An angel went from God to a town called Nazareth, to a woman whose name was Mary. The angel said to her, rejoice, O highly favored, for God is with you. You shall bear a child, and his name shall be Jesus, the chosen one of God Most High. And Mary said, I am the servant of my God. I live to do your will. My soul proclaims your greatness, O God, and my spirit rejoices in you. You have looked with love on your servant here, and blessed me all my life through. Great and mighty are you, O Holy One. Strong is your kindness evermore. how you favor the weak and lowly one, humbling the proud of heart. You have cast the mighty down from their thrones, uplifted the humble of heart. You have filled the hungry with wondrous things, and left the wealthy no part. Great and mighty are you, O faithful one. Strong is your justice, strong your love. As you promised to Sarah and Abraham, kindness forevermore. My soul proclaims your greatness, O God, and my spirit rejoices in you. You have looked with love on your servant here, and blessed me all my life through. God of mercy, hold us in love. In peace we pray to you. God of mercy, hold us in love. For peace and salvation we pray to you. God of mercy, hold us in love. For peace between nations, for peace between peoples. Have mercy, hold us in love. For us who are gathered to worship and praise you. Have mercy, hold us in love. For all of your servants who live out your gospel. Have mercy, hold us in love. For all those who govern, that justice might guide them. Have mercy, hold us in love. For all those who labor in service to others. Have mercy, hold us in love. Grant weather that nourishes all of creation. Have mercy, hold us in love. Keep watch on our loved ones and keep us from danger. God of mercy, hold us in love. For all the beloved who rest in your mercy. Mercy, hold us in love. Help us, comfort us all of our days. Please hold us, gracious God. Great and merciful God, source and ground of all goodness and life, give to your people the peace that passes all understanding, and the will to live your gospel of mercy and justice. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. God, remember us in your love and teach us to pray. Our Father in heaven, holy be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. Keep us from temptation, and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. just one second. I have an invitation, or want to let you know about something that's coming up this weekend. We have the opportunity, because of the coronavirus time and because of live streaming, it's an opportunity there's no way we would be able to do this otherwise. Our presiding bishop, Elizabeth Eaton, bishop of the ELCA, the presiding bishop of the ELCA, has offered a sermon and a service for Holy Trinity Sunday, which is this Sunday. And her schedule gets booked out probably centuries in advance. And so for the possibility of us having her join us is almost nil. But this is an opportunity for us to hear her and to remember that we are part of a wider church, that we are, as a celebration of that connection of our congregation to the wider church. So we are going to have information coming out this week to let you know how we're going to tune in. It will be on our YouTube channel, we plan, and we'll have those links and stuff. But something for you to look forward to and to be aware of and watch in your email, on Facebook, and all the various places that we post things. And now let us receive God's blessing. Let us bless our God. Praise and thanks to you. May God Creator bless us and keep us. May Christ be ever light for our lives. May the Spirit of love be our guide and path for all of our days. Amen.